Hey guys, I'm so excited to be here today with Dr. Jacqueline Campbell, and we're going to be talking about the overlooked shift in emotional intelligence and what leaders need to know about it. This is huge. Guys, she looks like she's in her teenage years still, but this lady has an old soul and she's served our great country as well. We thank you for your service, Dr. Jacqueline, and I love the service you continue to do as you help people with emotional intelligence. This is something that visionaries need most of all.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that a lot of visionaries are highly sensitive people because your vision means that you're just so aware. So usually our energy is spread so many different places. So it's hard to complete your vision and keep it on track without losing yourself in it because it can be very heavy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what? Tell us about your career. I summarized it way too fast a little bit. I also had some fun with your age there, but I would love to know. I would love the audience to have the type of understanding that I do, because due to our age and our social statuses, people could take my comments in a different direction, and I want people to realize that no, no, no. You have some serious depth with what you've done, what you've figured out, and how you've come to appreciate emotional intelligence and the way that you bring it to others. And you're a doctor too. Tell us about that. What type of doctor are you? All things Dr. Jacqueline.
Perfect. Well, what got me into doing this work was my childhood. I didn't really have the most stable childhood. We really weren't safe. We didn't know when we would be safe because, generational trauma is passed down to, our grandparents and then our parents and then us. And, we all do our best every generation trying to make it better. But at the end of the day, when I was 17, I was like, I got to be done with this. I need a different life, something that's better, but I didn't know what that would be. So I went to the Marine Corps and I spent 6 years overseas and I worked in security, which it was an amazing experience. And I got a lot of exposure culturally. And it was very educational for me, but also I wasn't authentic. And so I was just very rough and aggressive and sometimes even violent. But as a woman, I really wanted to be soft, nurturing, especially when I started having children. So after I got out of the military and I wasn't working in security anymore, I was thinking, well, what do I want to do for myself? What do I want to study? And I was actually a shoe-in to the FBI, or I'm sorry, the DEA, when I started realizing, no, I need help, right? So I started taking psychology courses and I ended up extending because I was going into criminology. It was very interesting why we are the way we are, especially when we have all this dysfunction. Like what makes bad people bad? Like that's really what I wanted to understand because I also had a lot of those tendencies to be so rough. So I really wanted to understand.
Wow.
Through understanding that, I realized I just needed therapy. So I actually extended after my master's and I got, the degree to be able to be a licensed therapist, specialized in neuroscience, working with trauma survivors, a lot of military people who were serving other people, teachers, nurses. And towards the end of that, because I was also a business owner, so, business owners gravitate to other people who get them. They wanted to be working with me, even though they were in therapy, and they were actually the ones that told me that this was needed in this space with leaders, with executives, that something like working on their deep emotions and learning to ground themselves is not incorporated in leadership development. So that was the whole reason why I made this shift, which is actually very scary because I had no money. It was the tail end of a failed business attempt. And I'm like, I'm really not good at business. So I guess I can try again. They're saying that it's needed. So I jumped ship. I left a six-figure therapy practice after I had bounced back from that business attempt to be able to do this. So now, fast forward 2 years later, we're starting to launch the trainings.
Whoa.
Yeah,
There is so
long
much
story.
about what you talked about that I want to ask questions about in my brain. I don't know if it's going to keep up, but there's so much value in that path for visionaries. I don't think you're the only visionary who's had more than one attempt
Yeah.
at trying to figure out which direction to go. I think 99.9% of us have to, there's Tiger Woods. I think he knew where he was going as a little kid. He's always golfing, but Let's dive into one of these big subjects real quick. I'm going to pull us back full circle after the break point, but I want to make sure that we tie some of this vast depth that you have to some of the tangible things that companies and businesses and visionaries can be doing in the here and now. So,
Right.
the shift in emotional intelligence. One of the shifts that I recognize, and I believe I would say pulled it from our combined AI, and so it might be your concept, was about the idea of emotional safety,
Mhm.
and why that's important with companies and with people, and more importantly, like how do we facilitate that? Because it's like obviously we all want to be safe. So how do we move that towards a tangible conversation? But is there another shift that you also want to add to that?
Well, that's actually a really good point because people don't think, well, what do you mean emotional safety? We don't know how to measure it or how to make sure that you are emotionally safe because a lot of time we assume we are when we're probably not.
Ooh,
When it comes to the way our nervous system is, it projects whatever's inside. So if you are hard on yourself, you are naturally going to be hard on the people around you. If you are critical to yourself, you're going to be critical to them. If you put pressure on yourself, you're going to put pressure on them. So you have these individuals who are promoted into leadership space or roles. And in these spaces, they're causing a lot of the problems that they don't like.
pause
They
that
don't,
thought. I want you to keep
sure,
going, but I want
sure.
to translate that. I have a very special reason for doing this, my friends. Si eres muy difícil con ti mismo o muy duro contigo mismo, también vas a ser difícil con otras personas. We got a lot of Spanish speakers that come in and listen to this, and so
Yeah.
I wanted to hit that home because the the tendency for most of the people that I know in Central and South America, they're very hard on themselves. And
Mhm.
so it does kind of end up projecting on others as well. And all of us need help with regulating that. So continue, please.
You're absolutely right. And I appreciate you making that translation because you see it in all different cultures in different ways. But I do find that the changing, the transformation to giving yourself a little bit more grace is harder for minorities, whether it
Hmm.
be because those individuals are harder on themselves because society's harder on them. So then you have a double
Yes.
negative. So to tell them if they, which is so hard for them to understand, if you are easier on yourself, if you give yourself some grace, you'll actually be able to do more. It just doesn't
This
register
this is
until
such
you
a tough reality for entrepreneurs. So
yeah.
anybody who's entrepreneur and high achiever, right? You're alpha, you're driven, you got to make things happen. Tenacity
Mhm.
is a big part of winning the game, etc. So how do we balance that as people who want to be driven, disciplined, diligent? How do we know if we're crossing the lines of obsessive overfunctioning, and ultimately causing problems for ourselves and others
Right.
by diving in too deep?
Well, if you're not very aware, somebody's probably going to be telling you instead of you realizing it, right? So just listen. At least try to take the feedback. But then if you are more aware, and I feel like visionaries, because they are more sensitive, they are self-aware, even though it's hard to get out. It's like we're fighting ourselves, even though we know we're fighting ourselves. you
Mhm.
know, in that space, if it is causing you stress, something is out of alignment or you're putting too much pressure on yourself, right? I'm sure there's other factors, but those are two main ones where if you can just say, okay, now that the stress is building, I just need a break. For example,
Yeah.
I think it was Monday, I had a few things on my schedule that I just couldn't keep up. And so I can actually accomplish a whole lot more if I'm effective, if my brain is working. And I know this. So because I was starting to get overwhelmed, I took something off my schedule and I put it for the next day. And then it
Mm.
happened the next day. That day it calmed everything down because I'm like, okay, I took the pressure off and I'll get it done the next day. I was having tech issues, which is interesting, right?
Oh,
And instead of pressuring myself to just get everything done, you can't do anything about that. You can
yeah.
just do what you can do. So the next day, the same thing happened. And I'm like, okay, well, I got the thing done that I was supposed to yesterday, and I got a couple other things done. So now something else has to be pushed off. And all I'm doing is strategically prioritizing so that I can still stay sane.
Yes.
Everything's still getting done. And that's when I have to remind myself there's a specific phrase that helps me bounce back, because I'm like, everything will get done. I may not know how everything will get done, but I am more effective if I'm not stressed. So I have
That's
to take care of me.
I think it's so important, visionaries. We often focus on the tactical of what we need to do that seems so related to the mission, but oftentimes it's what's not related to the mission that is required. And so, I left my apartment the other day and I was running. I was running late, and I had like a Gatorade type electrolyte drink with me, and I start drinking it as I'm running, and I begin to think of marathon run. I was like, man, this is hard. I was like, I wonder how they train to do this. And
Talent.
I that you know it, and what I realize, like I'm correlating that with what you're talking about, because we would think that, okay, to win the marathon, you got to run your 26 miles, like you got to get that done. But if you didn't drink the water along the way,
Oh.
then you wouldn't be able to do it. You wouldn't probably make it. I imagine that they have disciplines like that within themselves, and so if we're in traffic, it's one of my favorite examples. I've driven a long time now in South America, but when I learned eventually to stop being like everybody else in the traffic jams. It's all frustrated and mad. I'm like, wait a second. I've got my phone right here. I can
Yeah.
put a podcast on. I
Yeah.
can call a friend. I can use this, like this time is mine, no
Mm.
matter where I'm at, to use how I want. And just that mental shift, it also put me in a better position to where when I'm coming to work, I am not as stressed when I'm working on my like client or a prospect that I'm trying to help see the value of working with us. I'm not coming in going like, "Oh, I freaking hate traffic," and complaining about that and distracting from the
Yeah.
reality. So these emotional regulations, while they're, I don't want to say superfluous, but they're around what it is that we do, they are ultimately the essence that create the environment for us to be successful. And as Taylor Welch says, a strong person in a weak environment will lose to a weak person who's in a strong environment. Think of a
Mhm.
strong person with cinder blocks on their feet running a race compared to somebody that doesn't even have legs. Like that person's probably going to win because the person is in an environment where it's holding them back. So, further thoughts on that, Dr. Jacqueline?
Well, I think our environment definitely affects us, but the perspective in terms of adjusting it to help it make you better, right? We can do that. But it also, we have mirror neurons in our eyes, our brain, and we can absorb what's external to us. And because we are projecting everything external that's inside us externally, and then we are ingesting, it's this cyclical dance. And you are inevitably a co-creator of your own reality, because there are other factors that are programming you. So you have to be conscious of who and what you're around. So just making sure that it's done intentionally. But then, as in the professional world, when you're talking about somebody who's stressed, let's say it's the leader, it's the same thing when you're in a family environment. The head is going to kind of be the sun, right? Everything and everyone revolves around them, because they're the one with the control. It's the responsibility, but that means everybody is dependent on them. So if they're stressed, it's going to radiate to everybody else. But if they're calm and sturdy, even when things get hard, recognizing that they have emotions, they need to take a step back. What they're doing is they're showing through modeled behavior how to manage this. So it's naturally going to be absorbed by the people that they're leading.
So guilty, so guilty. Uh,
I had to
and
learn the hard way too.
and I still have. I'm stubborn. I still have to learn the hard way. But I love how you led by example as I came in today. You and Penny Wilson both. I hope y'all catch up. You're both phenomenal leaders, and I don't want to just say therapists, but people who help others with emotional regulation and centeredness. I went right into my podcast with her the other day, and same thing. I was kind of overstimulated, and she was like, so I told her that, and she immediately said, would you like to do some breath work? And I was like, let's do it. Let's just dive in. And I came in today, and same thing. You made space for me. Right. We were supposed to go live at 10 o'clock. Some people are super demanding on that. You came in super balanced, ready, and willing to focus on my needs first, make sure I was good. And then, of course, you had your questions too. And that type of leadership is something that I think a lot of startups could very much learn from. And we have a lot of people who are very, very focused on going into strategy and execution and just getting things done. And there's these shifts that can really, really help with the next level of growth. So when we come back, we're gonna take a little break. When we come back, we're gonna talk about how leaders can build trust, alignment, and strengthen their teams. And I want to dive into some of the ways that those leaders can apply it, perhaps on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. We'll see what Dr. Jacqueline brings to the table. All right, welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Calame. I'm your show host. We will be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there. Hey, what's up, my friends? Welcome into Vision Pros Live. I'm your show host, Jackson Calame, founder and CEO of First Class Business. And I am in like constant overstimulation mode lately. And I think it has a lot to do with the really cool projects that we're doing with AI. And as I say that, I'm super glad that our lineup of guests lately has been a lot of leadership development, emotional support individuals, legends like Dr. Jacqueline Campbell, who's here today to help us with the overlooked shifts in emotional intelligence that leaders really need to know. And I'm telling you, my friends, if you want to create a great company, one, you got to have a clear vision. And in order to have a clear vision, you got to have a clear head, mind, and heart. In addition to that, you also have to have a great culture. And if you have a great culture, guess what? People want to belong to it. That's what attracts people to say, I want to work with you, not our product and our service. It's what we're building. And then that attracts people to come in. And you've got to be able to position leaders well. They want infrastructure, they want to know that they're going to be safe here. They want to know that they're going to be abundant and they're going to win. So those three elements, in order to get those aspects right, we've got to have people like Dr. Campbell by our side. As I get ready to bring her back on stage and we dive into some of the emotional intelligence secrets that you can apply right what you're doing and what you're doing with your teams, we first want to give you some more resources. First is AI Mavericks. I actually invest as a member of AI Mavericks. It's like $60 a month right now. I don't know if their price is going up or not, but I joined as quickly as I could because I've known Austin Armstrong for a little less than a year now. Met him at Social Media Marketing World, and even though he's got 1 million followers, this dude was so present. He was so genuinely ready and available to talk to anybody who was there. His Facebook is amazing to follow. He's like my only Facebook feed at this point. It's just his stuff popping up, and it's because I learned so much from it. There's so much value that comes out of it, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm tied into him and Scott Simpson, who's a business partner on this venture, because both of them are researching AI at a super advanced level, and they're going into things like the the agents. Agentic state is a whole different topic, but the agents that can actually do the work for us. And so, if you're looking for advanced AI marketing and how to use AI, definitely check out what they're up to and why we're using that. I also have my own AI community. You would think that we wouldn't do that, but I believe in collaboration, not competition where you're trying to just crush others. Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan were great friends. We got to make the same thing happen if we want to create a world. The AI marketplace is what we've launched at First Class Business. You go to ai.firstclassbusiness.io. This is so important for the world. My friends, you already are AI experts. We've all been using AI for decades. And I think so many of you have friends and family who are professionals who are terrified of what's going on with AI, and they're worried about, are they going to have a job in a year from now? And yes, if you get ahead of this AI curve and make sure that you position yourself to just understand the language a little bit, you don't have to be a tech. That's the best part. You're going to do better with AI as a normal human being than a tech geek would, because if you understand emotional intelligence and human relationships, you're going to be at the front run. You're going to be the front runner to help companies be able to create the next level of evolution that's going to take AI probably 5 to 15 years to figure out anyway. So ramp your LinkedIn, ramp your resume, and even pass your interviews so that if you do need to transition to another job because your current company doesn't believe in your AI skills, well, we want to empower you to do that. And on the business side, it shows you your bottlenecks. And I'm talking about real bottlenecks. At first, when I designed this, AI tried to tell me one of the questions was, is your do you want to automate your prospect process or something like that? I was like, you can't automate prospecting. That's automating your relationships. That's impossible. And so I pushed back on it and I was like, look, maybe you can do that in 10 years, but right now, what are the practical things that we do? And it's, here's one. I don't have time. I care about my quality assurance of my with my clients, but I don't have time to test it every day. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a huge thing. That could absolutely be done with AI. And so, of course, we then help people build these systems out through the process. And so, I want to get back to Dr. Campbell, but I'm just so excited about what this has been doing for us lately. It's helped us increase our YouTube subscribers by over 1,000 subscribers in the last 5 days. We were at 100 subscribers, my friends. Like, it is so cool. It can be done. We launched 24 blog posts in the last 3 days, all incredible deep blog posts that have been stuck in my brain for the last 15 years that I couldn't do the research for by myself. So I can't talk about this enough, because you guys, we've got to dive in and use these tools in order to create abundance for ourselves. The world has not been abundant in business for more than 50 years. 66% of businesses fell within 10 years. We got to stop that. Then there's the water project. The water project is super near and dear to my heart at this point, because I didn't get it when I first saw it. Somebody was telling me about it. I've never been thirsty in my life, I don't think. And so that's probably why. But I see these kids celebrating water like my kids celebrate Christmas Day. And that should help us realize, like, whoa, there's a big need here. What if our kids had to leave school to get water, or we had to leave work to go find an unknown water source for our family? We don't have to do that, but there's millions of people in Africa who do. The neat thing about the water project, when you decide to give 10 to 20 bucks to it, they actually will tell you what happened with the project, what the timeline is, how it's coming to fruition, and show you that they actually did the work. And I love that level of transparency. My friends, there's 8 billion people in this world to help. So if you know of another cause that you'd like to see us talk about, do me a huge favor. Drop it in the comments. I will personally take a look at any cause that comes through this process and see what we can do to help out with that cause as well. I really hope you join us on that as we go back to helping each one of your visions. So without further ado, Dr. Jacqueline, again, thanks for being here today.
Sure, I appreciate you coming back, and I really love what you're doing. I love the cause.
Oh, good. Which one?
Right, you have so much, but I feel like the way that you're doing it, you're trying to help everybody, right? Like, it
That's
seems
it.
like you don't always do the same cause, right? You're trying to spread it, and that's
Well, here's my secret.
awesome.
And this is our mantra at First Class Business. It's our number one rule. And the number one rule is, we do what's best for those that we serve.
Hmm.
And everybody who comes in front of us is the next person that we serve. And so
Yeah,
we're always going to do what's best, and that helps us move into these. And to back to that emotional intelligence aspect, this topic that's so important to me, it's like, that's why I'm always finding leaders like you too, because I want to continue to help the world realize that this is something that can have an incredible positive impact on the world, and it can change it for the better. We can win more as a society, as human beings, if we just dive into it. So I
right.
appreciate you taking a moment to honor that reality. Let's dive into the what can be done weekly, monthly, or daily in relation to how leaders can build trust, alignment, and stronger teams.
Well, let's do one
Yeah,
first because there's
for
so much
sure.
to unpack. You're talking about build trust, alignment within their teams, right?
And stronger teams. Yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately leads to it, right? Is if you can build trust and you
It
can build
absolutely does.
alignment, it's going to be strengthened. But how do we do that?
It does. And you're keep in mind you're leading at home and you're leading at work,
Mm,
right? So one is going to be a reflection of the other. I wrote a book called Life's Contradictions. It's actually right over my shoulder. In this book, I discuss how leaders have personal issues that are reflecting their professional issues. And as they balance their nervous system, both of them come into alignment. Now, we can't find alignment with our teams or anybody else if we don't have alignment with ourselves, because we get so disorganized and we don't have clarity, and we kind of tend to think that we have to have it all together. So we end up doing something, making a decision, giving an answer when I don't even have clarity because we're scared of using the words, I don't know. Give me a
ooh,
minute, right? Or either give me a minute, give me 24 hours. Let's say, for example, and this is something that they can do on a daily basis. I ground before I go into a meeting or meet with somebody. If it's just for a quick second, that's fine. At the very least, for the quick second, but usually for about 5 minutes. For this podcast, I did a 15-minute breath work, right? So we have to prioritize what we're doing based off of who and what we're going to interact with. So you need to ground yourself so you have clarity. And then moving forward, I don't ever make an important decision that's going to change the trajectory for my personal life or my professional life if I do it within, I'm sorry, I don't make the decision for 72 hours, no matter how happy I am about it,
Right.
or if I'm nervous about it.
That is not entrepreneurial, and it should be.
It should be. We get so impulsive. Just because they're good hormones and good feelings doesn't mean that they're good. They can still blind you. And
Oh
that's
my
what
gosh, they will
self-mastery
blind you.
is.
They
Mhm.
will blind us. And well, it also, as an entrepreneur, not the solopreneurs, my friends, I don't believe that's entrepreneurship. I love you and I hope you continue to look for your teams because it is a team sport. I've never met a successful solopreneur. So with that said, it undermines your teams,
Yeah.
right? If I make a decision without talking, and I do it all the time, I mess this up all the time. And I finally got somebody on my team who has a very strong voice and pushes back on that. And I'm so happy that they do it. I trust me, I get pissed in the moment, but I'm
Right.
starting to learn to dive more into that humility. And I've got a little team, 3 people who are on what we call the governing body. And there's 4 of us in the governing body. I won't make big decisions without consulting with those 3 individuals first. And
Yep.
if we're in a position where 2 of us want to do it and 2 of us don't want to do it, we agree on who's going to be the mediator who comes
Mhm.
in to help us be the tiebreaker to decide. And then we'll respect each other on that. And that protects me from one of my favorite, scariest quotes is absolute power corrupts absolutely. And every founder
Ooh.
who's by themselves is stuck in that position where you are 100% um, likely to be corrupted. You cannot leave yourself in that position and make great decisions as a business owner, in my humble opinion. So please continue. That was you just sparked them. I was like, yeah, I mess this up all the time. And I'm sure other visionaries do too.
Well, I appreciate your vulnerability in saying that, because if we don't mess things up, or if we don't acknowledge that we've messed things up, because sometimes we don't want to, right? Then we can't get the humility that comes with it, because that comes with wisdom.
Hmm.
And it's hard. It's so hard to our ego, because we're so scared of losing that ego that we're like, no, we have to be right. We have to hold it all together. And I have to be the one in charge. And humility says, yeah, you're not the smartest in the room. Sorry, I know you think you are, but you're really not. So when it comes to that saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, I don't agree.
I
I
get you. I hate that saying. I hate that saying. It makes me feel awful because I'm usually the freaking smartest person in the room on a specific topic. But like in every other thing else, I'm lost. And
yes,
so it's so frustrating because you're like, no, I can't like dumb my down. But I know I don't relate to people because of it. And so thanks for calling it out. But what am I
sure.
supposed to do to fix that? Like, so yeah,
Yeah.
that's really,
Well, it helps us build humility, but it also helps us see the value in other people. So when we have stress surface, let's say you're dealing with a difficult coworker that you just want them to do something for you. Are you being too controlling? Or are you not seeing their value? Because they might just be in the wrong position if they're not doing what you want them to do. Or you might need to reframe and ask them a different way, which means you need to collaborate better. And individuals who are looking to be in leadership for control, they always micromanage or they belittle.
mm,
That's not right. The best leaders, the best people are the ones who say, "No, I go to different rooms to get different information, and even on the thing that I'm an expert at, the more you learn, the less you realize you know, because there's so much to learn." So you have to be a lifelong learner, and you naturally have
okay.
humility.
You brought up 2 big things that I'm going to showcase, and one is going to. I hope it blows all y'all's minds as you're listening and our Scrabble nerds. Humility. This
Mm.
word is one of the most misunderstood words of our generations, and I got other podcasts where I literally talk in depth, and I won't do that to you guys. But it is so one. It's about intentionality, my friends. If we're not getting intentional with how we're doing things, then whether it's our tone, our cadence, or our word choice, right? I can tell somebody I love you, and like they won't get it because I didn't deliver it with a sense of meaning. Or I can tell somebody like I like you, and I can confuse them because again, there's nuance to all of these realities. The word humility is one of the most misunderstood words of our generation, and I'm talking the last 1,000 years probably. And we're going to go over here to Google, and Google recently updated this. I'm glad they're getting closer, but it says humility is the quality of having a modest view of one's value or importance. It used to say a low view of oneself. That is the
Oh,
exact opposite of the definition, the original definition from over 2,000 years ago in Judaism and other such languages, probably Aramaic. I can't remember which one from the study now, but the original definition of humility as defined by the sources of truth that were trying to help us value these virtues was a full appreciation for oneself and a full appreciation for everything else.
yeah,
And so, what does that mean? That means that I can 100% appreciate my own beauty while also appreciating everybody else's beauty. I can appreciate my intelligence and realize what I have while making sure to know that I'm not better than anybody else just because I happen to have gained that. And so when we shift our understanding of what this word means, so many people self-deprecate and think it's humility. That's not
yeah,
humility. That's just a different type of vice. So we're going to come back to that too, Dr. Campbell, but I also want to show this because you brought up the home and work, and they do intertwine. And oftentimes we intertwine them in ways that are super destructive when it comes to our visions. And I wrote this great article on this, the most expensive decision, and it's having the wrong people in the room. Look, if I'm at war, and you know this as a Marine, I am not going to call my wife and say, hey, honey, should I barge this door down? You don't talk to your wife about things like that when you're at war like that, and when you come home you probably don't talk to things as a soldier, but business owners do this all the time. And so what happens when a business owner turns to their spouse or a family for major business decisions? Well, that's the wrong room entirely. According to studies, family to business interference undermines firm performance. A spouse without executive experience, this is key. Your spouse can have executive experience and they can crush it in your business. I have nothing against. I love having family involved if they have executive experience in the business. But a spouse without it in the business is filtering your decisions through personal fear, not through strategy. So many of us as business owners are guilty of making a couple bad decisions, telling our spouses too much about said bad decision, then putting the onus on them for future decisions and saying, well, what do I do, honey? Should I do this or not?
yeah.
And how in the world are they supposed to come up with the right answer if they don't know how business actually works? I think this is one of the most devastating things that happens to visionaries and entrepreneurs. Feel free to speak to either one, Dr. Jacqueline.
Well, with what you were talking about in terms of sharing with people not in the room, especially making the decision, one thing which was really unfortunate, and I wish this wasn't the case, but it's a truth that I had to accept. I couldn't take business advice because I'm a science person. I know how to transform a human being, right? So like the nervous system is my spot, right? When it comes to business decision, I was getting the wrong consultants, the wrong strategists, the wrong coaches, because they were multimillionaires with all these businesses. They
Mm,
must know more than me. So I
right.
actually self deprecated and I got myself into hustle culture. That's not
Oh,
me. I got like both feet. I'm a hippie. Like I love meditating. I love doing things zen. And I knew that there's got to be a different way than what they're telling me, but I didn't trust myself. And that led to a business failure as a single mom, filing bankruptcy, losing everything. And I still have to recover from all of that. But that's
right.
because I took advice from somebody I thought knew more because they had more money and experience. Well, if they aren't aligned with you, they're really not going to give you the right advice. So now I discuss things, right? And of course, I discuss with ChatGPT to get another, more experience. But
Yep.
after I talk to only people who have lived my experience as a visionary leader, sacrificing so much time, energy, money, livelihood to get the vision, like to create the vision, those are the
Mm,
only people who I will discuss about the hard decisions and the struggle. Anybody else, they can't be part of that conversation because they just don't get it, which is okay. But I also don't talk to people who have a lot of money who are in hustle culture because they can't give me anything worth of value. Even if they tell me how to scale to, multi-million, it's not worth it.
I am so
So
grateful you're talking all about this because those blog posts that have been driving me crazy for years, almost all of them are synchronized together to talk about how to not
yeah,
fall into traps that we both fell and how to recognize the right people. And so I'm
yeah,
hoping pave the path for people so they can see it. I want to go back to something you said. You talked about the failure, the bankruptcy, and the difficulties. I also have my failures. And there was a moment where I told my sister during one of the most vulnerable points of my life, and I said, you know what? The good news, the great thing about being in this hole right now that I can't get out of, I can't screw anything up.
Yeah.
I was stuck. There was nothing I could freaking do. And so I learned a very hard lesson as a leader and visionary that I wasn't ready for the next level. And I learned to be grateful to my God about it because I was like, man, if I look back at myself 10 years ago and I become a multimillionaire,
Yeah.
I would have ruined my life. I would
Mhm.
have ruined my relationships at an
Yep.
even higher level. I wasn't ready yet. And I could not
Mhm.
have seen it the way that I see it now, that I had that time to sit in that hole and to know that,
Yeah.
wow, this really freaking sucks. And I got myself here.
Yep.
But as I try to figure out how to dig out, I have nothing but time in my hands to think about
Mm.
all the things I did wrong to get myself
Yeah.
in that situation and find that sense of like, you know what? God knows where I'm at. I can
Yeah.
appreciate this. I can keep moving. I think a lot of visionaries relate to being in those types of situations. So, you want to speak more about that, or do you want to move to the next subject?
Yeah, actually, while you were saying that, what I was thinking of is now that I had that moment, it was like a whole year that I spent alone. I'm like, huh, I can't be making any decisions right now. I really got a lot of gratitude for sitting in silence to wait for the answer to surface. And the universe helps, right? God, whatever you want to call it, source, it is there and it's there to guide you, but it only is guiding you with your intuition because that's what picks up on it when
Yep.
you're still. And so at the
Mm,
end of the day, with all of my lessons, all the information that's out there that's going to train me how to run a business, and all of these people who they have been through this before, if they give me advice, I always go back into silence and I wait for the answer to be validated and verified of what I'm supposed to do to move forward. But if
mm,
leaders don't have that discipline to hold themselves back from a great idea, right? Or
yep.
freak out because of something that's scary, to connect with themselves, to find alignment, and then with discipline, move forward because you can't run forward. That just, you can't be still enough to hear the guidance and to connect with the people around you to make sure that they're still in alignment with you, with all of us moving
Mhm.
forward together. If you start sprinting, it's just
Yep.
not going to work.
I do it all the time, and it slows us down all the
Yeah.
time as a team.
Because
And
mistakes
so it's
happen.
something. It's a big topic of this week for our company. Is I've got to make sure that I include my team more often when I'm creating these crazy ambitions.
Yeah.
And whether it's shiny object or even it's something that's valuable, my friends, it can be something that's super valuable. But if you leave your team out, or you leave
Yeah.
the people out who are supposed to be supporting it, then it can disrupt the process and it can ruin the whole experience. Just like if you go to a movie and you're excited to see it, but the person with you is being a snob or being a jerk, it's like that can disrupt the entire experience. And so
Yeah.
or they're ignoring you. There's so many ways we can get that wrong. So let's dive
Yeah.
back into building strength and alignment with team members. What's something that can be done weekly or monthly or quarterly?
I think that you and I are in alignment because I was just thinking we have to get back on that. And that's exactly what you said. Um, when it comes to daily, we were talking about being able to ground yourself before you make those decisions, and paying attention to who you're meeting with. At the end of the day, making sure that you actually clock out, especially if you're the one in charge and you see things from a bigger perspective. Let's say you're the leader of an entire division, or you're the entrepreneur. You need to be able to turn your brain off, because all of those trying to figure out the solutions, let your brain run wild while you sit in silence. If you need to vent to chat GPT to have it reflect back to you, do that. If you need to journal it, write everything down, either handwriting it or typing it or just saying it out loud, it doesn't matter, but you do need to get it out of you. And then you have to close
Mm,
everything and stop working, because the
mm,
insights will actually come, right? That's where you get everything out. And then all of the problems that you need to solve, the information is going to slowly come in. So you need to implement those things daily. And then
yeah.
weekly, there has to be some kind of self-care regimen, whether you work out regularly or you, I don't work on the weekends. And sometimes I'll make it a 3-day weekend because the week has been so hard. Even, yes, bills need to get paid. I'm not saying that's not the case, but if I don't check out, I won't be good on Monday. Those types of exercises or practices. And then you have to keep it as disciplined as you can to make sure that it's consistent, because you're training your nervous system.
I'm going to throw another thing in there for that. So on the team member side, my friends, we do a meeting at 2 o'clock on Fridays, and we call it Level Up, Calm Down. And so it's
Mhm.
still a productive meeting, but we're not allowed to talk about anything stressful, and we're not allowed to talk about anything related to fires in the company. We have all morning to knock those things out. And so the reason why we chose 2 o'clock is we're still at the midpoint of the day, but now it's a break room opportunity, but virtually.
Right.
And it's an hour and a half long. And oftentimes we do show and tell, of like, what do we do this week? Or what are we grateful for? Who are we grateful for on the team? We might even bust out karaoke once in a while. We've done that a long time. We need to get back to it. But the thing about this meeting and what I've seen is it gives all of us a chance to reset, get centered. I get to recognize who's antsy, who's anxious, who wants to talk about the fire and the stress. And so the team members who get rejuvenated by that, I see them crush it through the end of their Friday. They always fly out and just go get things done. Nobody's dragging to the end of the weekend.
Yeah.
And then I get to check in with all my team members going into the weekend and make sure that everybody's good. That's my number one responsibility on my Fridays. And it's always on my heart. It's like, okay, I got to get so-and-so, I got to so-and-so. And by the time we're moving into Friday, if all my team members are good and they're calm or they're happy, that's even better. Then I get to also be able to rest a little bit easier on the weekend. And
Yeah.
guess what happens on Monday? Everybody comes back to work excited.
Yeah.
Everybody comes back to work ready to go because we take that time every single week to make sure that, again, we're leveling up, but we're also calm and taking time to appreciate. And so it's a super hack for virtual companies that I don't hear about very many people doing.
Well, I appreciate that you do that and that you set it for the listeners to know too. And I do a similar practice whenever we have our meetly roundup. The initial part of it is always the task's going to wait. How are you? And the reason for that is twofold. One, because of exactly what you just said, they've decompressed and then they're more effective. But that's actually the way our brains work. If I'm thinking about all the fires and the to-dos and the tasks, then I'm actually in task mode. I'm not in connection mode. And you actually you are more effective when you've had connection, when you go into task mode, because you're now
Huge.
aligned.
Oh, it's
Literally,
huge.
your brain waves are now in alignment because your nervous system has opened and decompressed. So even if it's an hour and a half meeting as well, and let's say we spend 30 minutes on connecting, seeing how the kids are, seeing what you're doing this weekend, what happened last night, things like that, where I need to just see how my team is. Then what's going to happen is we get through things so much faster, so much easier. We're fluid and we're together.
Huge. Oh, I love it. Guys, these are multi-billion-dollar secrets, by the way. They really are. Like if companies really large put these into practice, it would change everything for the better for them. And your NPS score, your net promoter scores would go up. Everything would go up for your business. And so I highly recommend it. This is also helping me refine the process because there are certain disciplines that I'm getting better at, but I still need to intentionally move more towards. And so one of them is like I used to not think about. I just write in like, what do we do? How are we doing? And I just get right down to the business rather than talking first about how we are. And then Monday mornings in the group environment, sometimes it's hard to know like how do we address because everybody has a different weekend. Somebody's relative could have died. Somebody's dog could have died. There's so many things that can happen, and so
Yes.
we can't always come in Monday mornings with our own emotions as the scope of what needs to take place in the meeting. And so we do the old gladiator thing of like, hey, how's everybody doing today? Good or bad? Let's see it. And I can do a better job of making sure to register and note who's where. But I think that my leadership will go to another level if I, instead of trying to find out and take care right there in front of everybody, if instead of afterwards, I come to them and give them a personal call and say, hey, you good? Is everything okay? And can I do anything for you? That would be probably my next step for our Monday morning meetings to improve that. So visionaries, if I can do an interview, find application at the same time. All
I'm so
we
sorry.
do,
Say that one more time. You cut out.
yeah. Okay. I'm glad you let me know. Visionaries, if I can do an interview and simultaneously take notes about how I can improve, every single one of you listening in can do the same thing. You can apply so much from what we've talked about today to your life. And I hope that you apply the best of this to what you're going through, what you're learning. If you want to connect with either one of us, Dr. Jacqueline Campbell or myself, we're both available. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, elsewhere, wherever we're at. You just Google or chat GPT it and you'll find us. Mentors love to help people. That's what we're here for. And if you see a greater opportunity to work with us at higher levels, by all means, dive into your best opportunity and use a brand new blog as well to start learning. How do I delegate better? How do I make the right hiring decisions? Why should I not turn to a coach for these decisions, for heaven's sake? A great article on that. And so you got to find the right coaches. I want to give an honor to Coach Fletcher Ellingson. He is one of my personal coaches, phenomenal coach. And honor one more thing that Dr. Jacqueline Campbell said. On my calendar, I have a daily trauma work that 8:20 to 8:49 in the morning is my daily trauma work. And it is a combination of having coached with Fletcher and, of course, all the resources I've ever learned about therapy combined with ChatGPT. Now I would use Claude instead, but basically pulling together the exercises and exploring what do other of the best coaches in the world have and recommend for these scenarios. We can always refine our access to great leadership if we're willing to. That's my final tip for the day. Dr. Jacqueline, if this was your last chance to talk to visionary leaders, what would your counsel be for them?
What I would say is something that we don't realize until we've already messed it up is the higher you are in the, let's say, hierarchy. I don't really want to use that word, but that's the way we see it, right? The less you're actually doing the tasks, because what we were just talking about in meetings, we go from connection mode to task mode. And the higher you are, the more in connection mode you need to be, because you eventually will get to not doing any tasks and just connecting and mentoring people to make sure that they can stay on task. That
That
is a
is
huge mind changer, because you're changing your identity too. You have to eventually let go the more you move up of those tasks, which is actually letting go of control too.
I travel internationally with one book, and it is The Effective Executive by Dr. Peter Drucker. And as much as I've studied and referenced that book, neither he nor anybody else has ever opened my eyes to that concept the way that you just did. I thank you for that. And I know that, again, other visionaries, if you're just catching in right now, I highly recommend going back and listening to this whole episode. We'll see you next episode of Vision Pros Live.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out